Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai. Welcome to this meeting of the Cromwell Community Board. Very special welcome to Wally Sanford. Congratulations on becoming an elected member of the Cromwell Community Board in a very hotly contested election. We look forward to working alongside you, and the first order of business we have today is, of course, your declaration of office. So I'll hand over to Deputy Mayor Neil for their speech.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the privilege and honour to ask Wally to take his declaration as a member of the Cromwell Community Board. Yep. All right. I, Wally Sanford, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act. Date at Cromwell, 22nd of March 2023. Congratulations and welcome to the board. It's going to be everything you thought it was and more.
Thank you for those thoughts then. Welcome. Our first order of business is that we have two public forum items today. First of all, we have Robert Dick coming to talk from Central Wormworks, followed by Janine Wood talking about the issue of cars in the cycleway. So it's lovely. Welcome. Who do you fancy?
Hi, I'm Robbie Dick, or known as the Worm Man. We've been farming worms for 23 years on two different sites. The first one was a privately owned section, but the owner wanted to put the rent up 700%, so we had to shift. And the council said, well, you're doing a very good job for the district. We'll give you ground where we are previously sited. And we also got a loan of 20,000 that we paid back after 5 years. We're coming up under budget, actually. We only used 17,000. But previous to that, we had the Minister of Environment down, and the local mayor of the time was there, and Mr. Parker said to him, look after this guy, he's doing a good thing for the district. And which they did, they no complaints, and I think if we had carried on the way we were going, we would have been the worm capital of New Zealand. Maybe have a worm up by the big fruit there. We're not trying to reinvent the circle. All we want to do is commercialise an environmentally friendly operation. And by following what nature's done for centuries, we think we are doing that. There's no fish hooks further down the track, there's no chemicals involved, and we produce a very good growing medium, well the worms do, and they convert 30 tonne of waste a week. Most of the waste is collected from local orchards, freezing works, new worlds, and people bringing in lawn clippings. And so our operation is a two-pronged. We sell the worms and we also sell the castings. we send hundreds of kgs of worms to plumbers for composting toilets. They go all over New Zealand. Today, presently, we got worms going to Auckland, a regular order for a huge waste operation called Eco Stock. But yeah, because we've shifted once, and I know what's involved in shifting a worm farm, it's just not getting a loader in and lifting a few things up. Our buildings are on concrete foundations. All the fences have got concrete footings, and we've got an orchard and a garden that we use to show people what we can grow with the product. So when they said that I could shift to Richard Beach Road, the site is not actually suitable for worm farming. It's the wrong shape, and to turn truck and trailers around with 40-tonne of product on, you need a solid foundation. Otherwise, you'd be dragging them out. So the site we're on, it works perfectly, and it has worked like that for 20 odd years. So we would just like, we don't want any special attention, we just want what other people are getting, and if what you hear is true, their leases have been extended for a lot longer than what I've been offered. I think that's about much of the matter, and any questions on me?
So around the table, are there any questions? Thank you, Robbie. We know we've got a report about your lease coming up early on in our meeting, and so after Janine has spoken and we've gone through our minutes and apologies, then we get straight into your into the report about your lease. So you're welcome to stay while we discuss that. And I know that several members of the board did take time to come out and visit your operation near the end of, was it the end of last year, beginning of this year? End last year. And would see the work that you've put into developing the site and the way that you operate and your impressive garden that goes with that as well. So we thank you for your time, and obviously we'll be talking about the lease.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Janine.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the chance to speak to you today. I'm here with my Citra Otago Queenstown Trails Network Trust hat on, commonly known as the Lake Dunstan Trail around this neighbourhood. And what I'm wanting to just talk about is the interface with the lakefront and our users. Back about at least 5 years ago, before the trail was built, I came and did a presentation to the board about where the trail could go. And there was quite a bit of discussion about trying to ensure that the lake was available for use by several people and several different user groups. And we were advised not to put up any fences or any barriers to protect our trail, that we were to keep it as open as possible. And I think we came up with a pretty good solution with the help of some members of the community. I think, Neil, you were also one person that came with me, and we worked on a process there where we relocated the trail so that we could have the trail in one position and the lakefront still being accessible to lots of people. After 2 summers of use, we're seeing that there are some particular hotspots where the public seem to not respect the trail or not understand that the trail is there. And that is because several reasons. The signage isn't enough, but then we all know about signage and that doesn't necessarily matter anyway because they ignore it, or we've had signs that have been bowled over. So I've got 4 areas of concerns that have been raised by the public over the last, well, particularly this summer, and it may be because it's all been, visitors not really familiar with the area. I think the general public, our locals certainly know where the cycle trail is and do definitely respect it. And what's also heartening is that the public, where our neighbours and everything, are all champions for the trail now. So it's not just me and the trust going on about the trail, that there's lots of people that are saying this needs to happen, or telling people not to drive where they shouldn't be going. So I'm quite heartened with that. So the 4 areas of concern is around Brittany Cove, which we knew was controversial from the start, but we've had people driving in from Dustin Park, getting on the narrower trail there and heading straight through, and of course they couldn't turn around, so they've been in front of all those houses there. So there's been a couple of postings on the social media places, if you've seen that. Now, we did have a sign up, and that was totaled. So you've got a big solid wooden post with no motorised vehicles, and that was gone. The only solution we can see is potentially putting in a bollard like we have done. If you look at the Dustin Park boat ramp, the areas to the left we have a bollard in, and we've got narrowed the area with rocks, and so that was never any vehicle access. So what I'm going to suggest is that we put a bollard in the other way, which is quite obvious that you can't take a vehicle through there. These bollards cost us about $500 each. That's before they get installed. Just recently, we've got one down at the Richards Beach end, and someone on a 4-wheel drive has just decided to push that over and bend that. All I can say is I hope the vehicle is more damaged than what our post was. But it's this sort of ongoing thing that's a bit of a challenge for us. The other place of concern is around Alpha Street by the bowling club. People are coming off Alpha Street, going into the bowling club car park, and then they're driving along the track along there. And we deliberately haven't cluttered the place with signage because, well, personally I've got the opinion that people go sign blind, they don't see signs anyway. But the suggestion has been about putting some rocks in position to maybe protect that trail and make it a bit more obvious. So those are probably the two places that are on council controlled land. The other 2 are on Lynn's land, but that's in front of Bell Avenue. And if you remember, Neil, we took away from the waterfront and we've come up to the top level, and there's a sheer bit of land that, or sheer bit of track that goes along the top. But the 4-wheel drives are tearing up from the bottom and onto this small section, which is probably less than 100 metres long, but it's still, yeah. And I've had several phone calls from neighbours witnessing. We haven't killed anyone yet, which is, of course, what we were told we were going to do right from the beginning. So I'll be talking to Lynn's about that and maybe stopping the access directly from the bottom lakefront up onto that terrace, and potentially even stopping that continued driving along in front of Bell Avenue there. So this is really an information session for you guys, so you're probably going to be asked the questions because people don't differentiate between what's Lynn's and what's council and what we're doing. And then the 4th place, of course, is the water park area, which despite all our concerns about getting a good turning bay, the general public being just pulled off, parked in there, and once again someone bowled into our big power pole sign, their marker, so hopefully that bumper's nicely bent, but we have to reinstall that and work with Emily on how that's going to be managed. So that's a heads up for you on that with Lynn's and the water park people. One of the things I said about signs, they're ignored, they're not seen, and they've been damaged. But safety is a critical thing for us because we're sharing the path with so many different youths. And I think it's really working really well for the community. I think there's lots of positive things, say all the support we're getting. We're also still in a bit of a user pays debate. I don't know if you're aware that there is a QR code out there for people to donate to the trail. We don't get any maintenance funding from particularly the council, which is fine. That was a model we deliberately put in place, but we're just trying to get more of that people involved in actually supporting it. So just watch this space. Are we going? And to give you an update on the current situation, as of this morning, we've had 133,968 people pass the one counter we've got on the trail since opening in May 21. And so far this month, we've had nearly 5,000 people in March, which, even though that's half of last year, is still a significant amount of people to be on the trail. And that counter is near Carrick. So we're not capturing people that get on the trail at Cornish Point. We're certainly not capturing the people that do the regular route around the Cromwell area. And it highlights the business case that said we'll do 7,000 in our first year and maybe get up to 13,000 by year 10. So we've been, we're dealing with an exceptional circumstances.
Thank you, Janine. Your 5 minutes is actually up. So just one more thing.
One more thing, I just want to update you on the other trails. They're all in progress. We hope to go to tender for the other 3 trails before the end of this year or middle of this year. DOC and its lizard management plan and our wildlife permit are the things that are holding us up at the moment. So expect more lizards. Expect more people into Cromwell. Expect more people into Cromwell because the Queenstown Kara Gorge is going to be open and the linkage up to Wanaka will be happening too.
Thank you so much for the update and the issues with those 4 spots that you've highlighted around obviously the 2 that are on council land are the 2 that we can have any effect to, but good luck with your other conversations. Any questions for Janine?
Just a quick question. On the running order sheet here, it says cars on the cycleway. Is that just driving on the cycleway or is it parking as well?
Main's driving on it,
Right.
particularly around the Brittany Cove. They were getting onto it there. Parking on it was probably more around the water park, so that's what we'll be addressing with them. But generally it's driving along it. The same places the young children and the families.
Okay.
Yes.
Where's the trail end? I can't remember.
May 21.
May 21. And Brittany Cove is Lynn's too.
Council. That's the one that we had the community coming and talking to us about quite frequently.
Brittany Cove's in Esplanade Reserve.
It's you.
Wakefield Bay, sorry, confused with Wakefield Bay, sorry. Yeah, my apologies.
And that's why we made it narrower and as far as away from the edge of the lake there.
Yeah, no, I was confused with the other 2.
Thank you so much for your time, Janine.
That's all right.
Cheers. Okay, we have an apology from Mary today. That. Yes, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Wally. Got his name on the good name of agenda. Good man. Minutes folder. All in favour? And that takes us to the confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting, which is on page 9 of your agenda. Over any seconder, there's nothing raised from that.
I'll move.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Just a reminder on page 15 to be vigilant, to stand aside from any decision making when a conflict arises between your role as a member and any private or other external interest that you might have, and that interest register is shown below. And I note that Wally, we've still got to add you and your interests onto the one that's in the limits there, that's in the agenda.
I was going to volunteer to give one to Wally, which is I've got the Biza District Community Group, but I understand that group doesn't exist anymore. In which case, I can't give it to Wally, but I don't want it either then. So maybe just make that change as it's good authority that it does exist.
Someone who is the active member.
He's integrated it into this.
Thank you. That takes us to page 19 and item 23.2.3, which is the request to extend the lease held by Central Wormworks, and I welcome Linda to present that report.
Everybody?
After that.
this morning. I think we've been dealing through actual work.
Yeah.
So today, I bring you a report and ask you to consider extending the lease held by Central Wormworks. I'll take the report as being read. I'm quite happy to recap the history behind that. So the original lease commenced in 2004 and was granted for a term of 7 years. It included one right of renewal of 7 years and expired in June 2018, or was to expire. In 2016, the Community Board agreed to vary that lease by granting an additional right of renewal of 5 years. And that would have taken that expiry to June 2023. In June 2020, I brought a report to council to ask the board to ask if they would consider extending that lease by an additional 11 years. But that was declined because the land that the leasee occupies is being earmarked for development in conjunction with the Cromwell spatial plan. Late last year, my manager Gareth and I met with Robbie on site to discuss what a potential other renewal might look like, and it was agreed during that meeting that I would take a report to council to request an additional term of 1 year guaranteed, and then in a second year which would contain a cancellation clause. And the benefit of that was that it would give the lessee time to wind down his business, and there wasn't very much risk to council at that point because we weren't working on developing that land quite at that point. So effectively, what we'd like you to agree to today is agree to vary that lease to an additional right of renewal with 1 year commencing on 1 July 2023. So immediately after the other lease would have come to an end, we'll extend that, followed by one term of 2 years, with the 2 years to include a cancellation clause of 6 months by either party. That way, if we did happen to suddenly come online with the development, perhaps we could give the lessee the notice and to ask him to vacate. Or the win, I guess, for him is that if he's making good time through his winding down of the business, that he would then be able to hand in his notice and cancel that lease. Anybody have any questions regarding that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
On page 20, it says consistent with other leases on the land, which also include cancellation clauses. I don't think it is actually consistent, because other businesses, other organisations have leases that extend through to June 27. In 3 cases, that's Paintball Central, the Central Otago Motorcycle Club, and in fact, the Otago Metal Industries, their lease expired in 2028.
So the Otago Metal Industries is a new lease, and that matter came to the board last year, and the difference between that lease is that the lessee is very determined to purchase the land that they occupy, and when the development commences, effectively they could be lot 1, which would then be the first sale of the lot, and that could assist with funding the future development. The lessee is more than aware that that land could have a value of perhaps up to $5 million at this point, and is still extremely keen to purchase that, and his lease actually contains a clause whereby he could purchase that land post-development and would be ready to settle at that time. The other 2 leases which you have identified have cancellation clauses in them, and they can also be cancelled by either party.
Yeah, I don't think that really answers the question as to why those 2 have leases that go to 2027, and then you're offering only up until.
I can't quantify that right at this time, but I can certainly go back and take a look at that. But the purpose of those club leases, or when they were renewed, is that they do contain those cancellation clauses, which can be put into effect by council at any time.
Okay.
I just got a supplementary to that then, is that cancellation from day one, or is it a similar structure to this where they get 1 year and then 3 years?
So they are all slightly different, dependent on their needs, and off the top of my head, which is, I'm not a fan of that, off the top of my head, I believe that the motorcycle club, for example, they were having a very large function, some sort of I don't think it was a championship or something, I don't know. I'm usually quite good at remembering those things, Neil. They had a very big event, and they wanted to be guaranteed that they would be there for that, and didn't mind that it contained that cancellation clause thereafter, because it was the event that was very important to them.
So my reading of that is that after 2024, the 6-month written notice comes into effect. Is that correct?
So the cancellation clause takes effect from the renewal dated 1 July 2024. So effectively, on that day, either party, or from that day onward, either party could cancel that. And that is a 2-year second renewal, which will include that cancellation clause. So that will take them to 2026 if they so desire, and neither party exercise that cancellation clause.
Is it fair to say that we're not going to progress any cancellation if, like, land development, there's many reasons land development drags on. Like, it could happen in 3 years, it could happen in 6. We're not actively pursuing cancellation now.
We could be back here having the same discussion in a few years.
Yeah.
But our agreement with the lessee while we were on site was that he would use this time to wind his operation down and close the business. The site which they did not want to move to, and which has been described as not being the right shape or suitable for a worm farm, has ironically been tenanted to a worm farmer. So I'm not 100% sure how that will work for a different worm farmer. But yeah, it's slightly larger and it's on a corner section, so there's a few things in play here as far as it goes, but the definite understanding when we left that meeting was that it would be used to wind the business down.
Questions?
I take it by the rent that's been charged that wouldn't be commercial in terms of the land with an industrial valuation beside it.
Sorry.
The current rental of $13,000 a year that was industrial.
It's not industrial rent, so yes, so I did happen to think that when that the discussion about the 700% increase in rent, I would suggest that I'm not a valuer and it might not be 700%, but that rent could easily double or triple if it was changed from rural land to industrial land. It would be extremely valuable for nearly a hectare of industrial land in that site.
And that to me is quite crucial in terms of what we're setting ourselves up for with what's been proposed, is that the time frames to allow the business to do what the business does. But in that time frame, the land will become fully industrial. Most likely, the value is going to change. The rental will change accordingly, and then the sustainability of the business or anything else. If you're hearing that the land next door, which could be twice the size, it could be commercially worth $5 million, then conservatively this sort of land in the future we're worth $2 million, or a rental based on that valuation. You know, if things don't move, as Wally said, you sit there and say, well, the lessee could ask for another year or whatever, and with 6 months' notice, we could keep this going for quite some time. But I think the recommendation to me says is that we can't afford to tie ourselves to something that's going to actually mean that the community will miss out on other opportunities that could be there for that land that could provide a better return to the community to be invested.
Just to quantify that, it is endowment land, and it is endowment land. There is a responsibility on council to obtain the best return from that land that is possible. It is actually a legal obligation that we are required to meet. So if we were to leave someone in there on $13,000 rental, and when it could be, if it was worth $4,000 or $5,000, you could argue that it should be returning $50,000 a year.
Another point, I'm afraid I'm not quite clear about whether additional rent reviews are going to be recommended because we've got a double negative. Yeah.
No additional.
It's got to be going away there, David. Which page?
This is page 20, paragraph 4.
No additional rent reviews are not
Oh.
recommended. They're not.
Additional rent review are not recommended. And that's a reflection on the status of the tenure being limited.
Right, so additional rent reviews are not recommended.
No.
Right, okay.
Not one of them, not within.
Yeah.
There's two negatives make it positive, so therefore it would have been rent review.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's because the rent review could cost you $2,000 to say
Yeah.
that the rent was maybe worth $15,000, so it's still wouldn't be any further ahead.
So that takes us back, if there's no further discussion, to page number 19. No, 18, it says 19 on my piece of paper in front of me. Page number 18 in the recommendations. A, we received the report and set the level of significance. Agree to vary the lease held by Central Woundworks as followed. Additional rights of renewal. One of 1 year commencing on the 1st of July 2023, followed by one of 2 years commencing on the 1st of July 2024. There'd be no change in rental. The new final expiry date will be the 30th of June 2026. There'd be nil rights of assignment, and there's a cancellation clause that posts the renewal date. The 1st of July 2024, either party may cancel the lease with no less than 6 months written notice. And at C, we authorise the Chief Executive to do all that's necessary to give effect to the resolution. Do I have a mover in a second? Thank you, Bob. Seconder, thank you, Cheryl. All in favour? All against? Carried. Thank you.
Public.
That takes us to item 23, page 2.4 and page 24. Welcome, Quentin. It is the review of the proposal to dispose of part of the title to Waka Kotahi, the Land Transport Agency's agents of the Crown. We're talking about the roundabout that's been created at the Royal Tree. Thank you. So if that could be noted, please, that Cheryl has stepped aside from your discussion.
And Madam Chair, on the basis that I'm currently chairing a hearings panel application by the Wound Tree developers, it's probably appropriate that I don't muddy any waters. And even though the issue is one between the council and Wakakatohi, ultimately it has an impact on Wound Tree. So just to make sure there's no perceived conflict, I'll withdraw also.
Thank you. If that could be noted as well, please, that Neil has withdrawn. Because we have to see conflict of interest for this discussion. Righty-ho, so that leaves a very small crew of us to consider this on page 24.
Thank you. I'll take the report as read. So Veros Property, the developer of Royal Tree Estate, has requested a review of the decision to dispose of 1,740 square metres of the land out by the roundabout for $118,000. A letter from Diane Lancashire on Veros Property is attached in Appendix 1. The land in question is on page 24, like 25 in yours, in the sections A and B on Figure 1. So the letter talks to the fact of the lack of recognition of the benefit of the Wound Tree development and infrastructure it provides to the Central Otago district. The previous report that came to the Community Board for consideration did not include an option for the land to be provided at nil cost. And there was an original discussion around zero cost with the Wound Tree estate, noting it was a council decision and noting that the infrastructure does benefit the town, but that said, improvements within the state highway corridor are considered to sit with Waka Kotahi and not council. And our advice is around any further discussion should be between Wound Tree Estate and Waka Kotahi. Pass back to the chair for any question.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, this is a decision that we had already made, and I acknowledge that there wasn't an option for for us to give that parcel of land at no cost to Waka Kotahi at that stage. And as you've rightly said, it's Waka Kotahi who have passed on the cost of the development, not council or community board. So is there any questions or discussion? So if we go back to page 24, 20, one page out on everything, I think. Page 3, yeah, on to page 23, that takes us to our recommendations. A, B, C and D. The first that we received the report and accept the level of significance. Note the previous agreement with Waka Kotahi for the compulsory acquisition of this land and recommends to the Council of the Community Board resolution of the 21st of June 2022 to dispose of approximately 1,740 square metres of land to the NZ Transport Agency Waka Kotahi for $118,000 plus any GST if any be upheld, and authorises the Chief Executive to do all that's necessary to give effect to the resolution. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Wally. Seconder. Thank you, Sarah. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That takes us to our next item, 23.2.5, and I'm going to hedge my bets that it's on page 35.
You get it.
Right, I've got your system organised now. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
To look at the annual plan budget, yes, and fees and charges schedule. Welcome.
So this is year 3 of the LTP that we're going into. And as such, council have requested that we try to keep it within the boundaries of the original LTP, understanding that there has been inflationary pressure to date. So the overall district increase at this stage is 10.4%. However, through the process, before we finalise the annual plan and go into the new financial year, we will actually update it for actual growth figures rather than the projection of 1.9%. In the discussion, we've already covered through community board workshop and the update of the factors that are actually influencing this annual plan. So it is overhead pressures and such things like insurance. Premiums have gone up substantially. We have had elected member remuneration go up through the remuneration authority, and we've also been subjected to valuation increases, which have an effect on depreciation. Also, this year is the year that we will be funding 100% of the pole depreciation. So there was a decision made to stage that over 3 years previously. Through this process, we have found some issues with the overall financial strategy, and we will be looking to address those through the LTP. The one that is probably most significant from a community board is just looking at how we work through the deficit in the Cromwell Pole investment account. It's looking at a projection of 1.554 million in deficit, and that's because of deficits in their operation and also some capital funding in previous years. So through the financial strategy and the LTP, it'll give us the ability to look at writing that over the long term. And I'll take questions. I just raised with you also on polls, because we've got that issue. The fees and charges that are in your package actually have a small increase to the polls fees and charges. However, we're now recommending that we do not increase the polls fees and charges until we can actually look at that total picture of a financial strategy about how we move forward.
exactly what the alternate charge would be. I think that's a great way to acknowledge that. It would be really good to communicate that. I think I've been involved recently, stepping into your shoes a wee bit and helping at swim club and whatever, but the cost of running a pool, you know, David came down and met the swim club. It's really good to get that information across to them. And the cost of a swim is a really simple figure. You haven't got to be, you know, understanding anything more than actually it costs 10 times more for you to come here than you were paying.
Yeah.
And we're holding that because we find that that's a valuable service. That's actually a really powerful message. So
Yeah.
despite the raises, which are inevitable in every aspect of life, we're doing something small but significant, I think, there. I think that's a really positive thing, albeit 50 cents for a dollar. So it'd be really good to push that. Don't you, Dom?
Further comments or questions?
So, sorry, did I hear you correctly saying that you're not going to implement those charges, extra charges in the pool
But this coming year,
for this coming year?
we would like to wrap that into the LTP financial strategy discussion.
Because I saw something in here which I'm just trying to find.
That the actual fees charges schedule did.
It is.
Yeah. But it also, it says Gold Card Community Services Card and Tertiary Students Card holders will get a discount. Is that a new thing or is that something that's been in place before?
So no, that's been in place for some years.
Yes.
It has.
Right, continue.
Yeah, and that will continue.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Neil?
So just back to the poll. This year, there's an increase of 30% based on the year 3 LTP. And I'm assuming that's not all down to the depreciation.
A good chunk of it is.
A good chunk of it is, but not all of it.
No. We have got chemical costs also going up. Yes.
Because that depreciation wasn't a 3-year hiatus, it was a 3 years to get to 100%
Yes,
of the
it
change.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems, I hear what you say about depreciation, but it seems a rather significant jump of 30%. That.
Yeah, so every $32,500 that we spend is 1% on rates.
Yeah, but this is just 30% of the pool budget,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
far bigger than that. Just doesn't quite. I haven't got the figure for last year.
We do have other costs in the pool going up, particularly chemicals, and I believe that the team is trying to look at other ways of getting that there.
Yeah, I'll comment on that. So just looking at other ways from thinking that we can find some economies of scale, and the second piece is around staffing, and then how we can potentially offset that by other revenue channels through the school and things like that as well. And so hence the recommendation not to implement those charges for this year, just so we can understand the impacts of some of these changes we're going to be making.
And I guess it's about understanding the reality, as you were saying, Sarah, that pools, we don't cover it through admission fees. We don't recover. We only recover a small percentage through.
Open gestures, isn't it?
It is, and we certainly probably need to make the community aware of that it's a really good asset and that the community funds it.
I think something tangible that your rates are going on other than your rubbish bins or your roads.
Yeah.
The things that they've obviously got an issue with or you could find issue with. You can't find an issue with a pool that's been given to you at a 90% discounted rate. But I don't think we're positive promotion enough on those things. I think we need to push those a bit more in the tough times.
Any further questions or comments or discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to mention about the transfer station charges.
Yeah.
I just did a quick calculation and to me, it looks as though the increase in cost for once we've introduced the new 4-bin method of collecting waste, is fairly reasonable. But I noticed that we've actually introduced a charge for disposing of green waste. Yeah, we've got a green bin, but is that green bin going to be sufficient for people to dispose of their green waste, or will they still have to go to the transfer station to dispose of the majority of it?
I guess, I mean, they may have to, but also, maybe the issue is that there's people that don't have the bin system. So they need to be paying something at the transfer station.
You're paying for your bin, aren't you, if you're paying for bins, and if you're not?
Yeah, so there's a need to actually bring you a charge at the transfer station. To ensure equity.
Well, they just take that one step further. It makes perfect sense. The green waste always the cost of being processed.
Yep.
So someone's going to pay for it.
Yeah.
The green bins, the cost of processing that green waste collected for them is already taken into account by the rates that the green bin. So if you produce more than the green bin, you still got to pay to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Just like now with the red bin, if you produce more than what the red bin takes away, you take it and you pay.
Yeah, but equally, if you don't have any bins,
You don't pay.
Paying, so when you do need that service, you pay for it.
So where it says, non-applicable next to carload, trailer and ute load and trailer and ute charge, that's not saying there's no charge, it's saying is it not available anymore?
It's saying that it didn't apply before.
No, I thought that those ones have been replaced by per tonne or per cubic metre.
Yeah, so,
It's
Yeah.
a waste.
Good work.
Now.
through the chair, so, with drop off at, the transfer stations, we have had some trouble with disputes around what is classified as a trailer load. If you have a fag in a trailer, is it a trailer load or is it a boot load?
We take a car for that very reason.
Exactly. By having a tonnage rate, it ensures consistency for everyone. So what we have done is gone and loaded a trailer and demonstrated what that is. So we're just about to put out we have some comms to go to council alongside this and to share with the community boards around, here's a really full trailer. It's actually 150 kg, so $13 or $10 or so to demonstrate what that charge looks like, but it's around consistency of charging and so we have to display both fees and charges if there's a change. So if we could, it would just not be there, but it has to be innate.
Good work on clarifying it because it has been inconsistent. Sure. Yeah.
Where are we at?
I just make the observation to change back to depreciation is that the significant change that's helped us if it wasn't there is that the asset policy on the parks no longer collecting what 334,000.
So it's on passive parks basis.
That means those
Number of passive parks. 40.
Not a sports ground.
Pardon?
Not a sports ground.
No,
Okay.
it's sort of like land and trees and
So my question about that is that if we've been funding in the past, we don't.
recently, I think in the last.
So one thing is there's some depreciation already been funded because we're reducing it by $334,000. Seems to me there's an opportunity to find for the hole in the pool account out of that account.
It could be, yeah.
Just
Actually, yeah,
it's got to go a long way towards it.
yeah,
So just throw that out there saying that's a way to fill the pool.
yeah.
We'll keep the pool full.
Next time you're sitting under a tree in a park, just remember it's a passive park.
I'll tell those noise kids that are running around that. Can we get some signs?
Thank you for clarifying that, me too. That takes us, sorry.
I was going to query on the building consent charges. Some fees and charges are structured in such a way you've got a deposit and then you pay hourly rate at cost above that deposit. Is there some legislative barrier to doing that with building consents? Why the building consent's not treated the same way? Because it just looks like here, if you put in for a $350,000 or $350,000 to $500,000 bill, you're going to pay $3,636 as a fixed fee, but not all building consents are created equal.
So through the chair, no, there isn't a legislative reason for that. This is the way building consent fees have been calculated for some time, and it's worked out, you're correct, they're not all created even, but it's worked out on generally number of inspections. And that's how it's calculated. Yeah, yep, so that all builds up to, so a bit of work was done on it, and generally the time it takes to process the consent and the number of inspections needed is how the fees are structured. And other fees and charges don't have that much detail to enable us to do that, so they're hard to calculate. But we aren't required to do this way, but it gives certainty to people in the process to know what we're going to pay.
So we will look at the fees and charges in more detail through the RTP process. But what I would say is that there's a number of issues that we've got to try and look at for the long term. So we may not fix everything this round.
So do other councils use exactly the same process?
Some do definitely, but I wouldn't be able to comment across the board. And also the method of doing a deposit and then charging is much harder, because then everybody has to time record exactly, and then there's an invoicing system afterwards. Whereas if you pay your amount and you know what you're paying, it's actually much simpler for the customer and there's less admin around it. The other consent have got an admin chunk as well, because
and then you've got deep connection issues.
Yeah.
Whereas paying up front.
So when we were talking about plan changes, and then talking about clarifying, we were talking about clarifying that what was Anne was talking about clarifying
The resource consent.
Yeah, and would this have an effect, because there'll be less time if you know what you're going to be applying for? Will this have an effect on the fees and charges? Will they go down? Because you would know more about what you were saying, what you were implying was that there was, if the applicant had more information available to them, then they would put in a better application, and therefore it wouldn't take so much time to actually process it, before the cost would be down.
Yeah.
That's good. So is this going to, would that affect these fees and charges?
So I'm not quite sure of the context of Anne's discussion, but I think from what you were saying, Cheryl, what she meant is a clean application up front is cheaper to process. Yeah, so when somebody lodges a resource consent, if they've got all the information, then we can proceed with processing. But if we have to go back many times to get it, it takes longer and costs more. Yeah, and that's the thing with any consent process. Yeah.
But what's happening here is that the building consents are being lumped into some bands to reflect typical costs, provide certainty to the person that's trying to build a new house. The planning process, because of no two resource consent applications are the same, then you pay what it actually costs to process it.
So there could be more charges on top of this. Is that what you're saying?
And the resource consent area, there could be, and the building consent, no,
Yeah.
Right.
it's capped. So if I'm going to build myself, yeah.
Right.
Because the reality is, you know, when you're doing a building consent, you have to comply with certain standards. The code says what those standards are. Whereas with the resource consent,
It's more prescribed.
yeah, the resource consent is not so prescribed. It's far more general, and it just gets to be really uncertain. So
That's what the different.
I've not heard too many people complain about building consent fees. I've heard a lot of complaints about resource consent fees.
I guess the other thing is there a function through, and this is going to feed into Gear F potentially, where if a developer wants to build a whole set of similar houses, presumably that would be a lot more efficient to process for council rather than on an individual fee basis. It could cost twice as much. I mean, you might be able to process 5 for the price of 2, for example, because you're getting basically the same plans with a different address, potentially, the way developments roll out. So is there a function through community board or council where that can be discussed?
I think there is a fee for that, Wally, and I need to check that.
There is something aside to multi-purpose incentive.
Totally, and that was introduced some years ago, but what we have found is that every one of those multi proof consents or whatever they're called, is different enough that it adds a complexity. If somebody did it exactly the identical, and that's a possibility in Gear F.
Yeah.
Depending where we go with that, then yes, you can do that.
Mm.
But if you change this, then you change this, and just change this.
Yeah, well, that's just the call to make, whether it is the same or whether it's not.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But a decent portion of that is also inspections and things that you do for each street as well, so it'd be how much of
So they are relevant.
that work is, as per the plans, being checked up the same or
Good,
sites. So that-
good incentive not to build all the same house.
Yeah.
Get value for money. Will be all fair.
It is in there.
We
Right.
put $1 into the next category. Yeah.
Any further questions or comments?
There's a lot of work gone into that. Good job.
It takes us back to page 35 and the recommendation.
Yeah,
You were still thinking,
no, I to find my other questions, stand by, just give me a second.
stand by, Gordon, please.
Well, while you're thinking of that, Neil, could I
Yep, go for it.
mention here? I'm going to page 72 now, which is Cromwell Reserves. And it says Lowland Hall, playground remove, freestanding slide, etc., etc. And there's an amount in there of $73,000, I think, if my arithmetic is correct. I've got an email here which was sent in November 2021, actually, which said that there was 42,500 allocated for additional playground upgrades in the year 2023-24. I had a look at the Lowland playground, if you like, and I can't really see why on earth we're spending that sort of money on it.
It's a growing community with lots of young families in it.
Yeah.
Yes, and part of the play equipment are pretty old.
That's the two done its time.
Sorry.
We had the two on the swims done its time. You can only paint it so many times, right?
Splinters in your bum.
Did some upgrade about 3 years ago, and part of the plan was to go back to that playground and upgrade the rest.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Right. Neil, did you find yours?
Yeah,
Go. What page you on?
I don't know, page 69. So there's a table in there that shows the planned LTP rate movement. And it shows the annual plan for 23-24 rate requirement. Water controlled things is 3.568 million. Then it shows it, the change from annual plan to annual plan. I couldn't find, and I've been looking to find change that 3568. What was the long-term plan year 3 figure? Can you send me towards that? Because I'm sure it's here, but I've just been looking and I just can't track down the number I want. Because I'm interested to know, like year on year, that's good, annual plan, but actually 3 years ago we did an LTP. What was year 3, and how does that compare to what we're proposing? Backwards.
So 19.1.
Lost me 19.1.
So the rates increases in comparison.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. That's right, 19.1. LTP.
23.
Right. So it's actually, so the key thing here is that the long-term plan proposed an increase of 19.1%.
Yeah.
And we're only looking at 10.9. Yeah, which is somewhere in the back of my mind going, this is not as high as it was particularly planned to be. So there's an important thing in this is that what we, the staff and the council and everybody else has done is actually worked really hard in some challenging times to actually reduce the level of that increase by a significant sum. And that's actually should have been the headline. Just saying. Don't forget that. Doesn't matter what. The important thing is here is that, 3 years ago we did a really good job with the LTP, and we'll do a really good job next year for the next 3 years, and the 10 years ago that the next 7 that follow that. But the reality is that you only know what you know, and it just shows that actually a lot of work keeps on happening to make sure that we try and keep a lid or otherwise on where we're going. And so I think, it's still doesn't sound very nice, but I tell you what, 10.9 is a damn sight better than 19.1 in anybody's language. So I just wanted to pick that up. So thank you, because I couldn't find it for looking. I knew it was something like that. I am intrigued though. I'm back on page 67, and there's got to be a good reason for this. Is I don't quite. Is it saying when you look at the long-term plan versus annual plan change, we're going to collect $224,000 less in rates than what we thought we were going to do in LTP 3? Is that what that's telling me? It's the first time I've ever seen rates collections go down. Something can't be right. Rates never go down. We always go down.
But they're going up from the annual plan. So that's 3.7 or the 224. There's the difference between the 19.1 and the 10.9.
Annual plan 3.5.
They're not going up because we haven't put them up as much as we would have done.
Okay. And so for some reason there's a saving in the expenditure. You don't need as much rates. Yep. That's I got you. Thank you. Yeah. So what you're saying.
It is because of the complexity of comparing to the two different. It is actually quite difficult.
Oh, it's apples and apples. And which one do you look at? And you can see I was looking to try and find it. It's got to be there. But thank you for clarifying. Yeah. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No.
Final.
Can we get something?
Recommendations A, B and C on page 35.
With the exception of the amendment
To the point.
So up there on the screen for you all to see. Sees the report steps level of significance, agrees that the draft Cromwell Ward 23-24 annual plan budgets and recommends to council for inclusion in the 23-24 annual plan. Agrees to accept the Cromwell Ward 23-24 fees and charges schedule and recommend to council for inclusion in the 23-24 annual plan without increases to entry prices at the Cromwell Ward. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Cheryl. All in favour? Anyone against? It's carried. Thank you so much. That's a huge amount of work.
All of you, Wayne.
You are.
You've got more than
That's the job.
That's because you did all that right on scene. But page 75 is where we are going next to 75. It says 76 on the piece of paper, but we're running a page behind. Just a wee scratch, but wait and play with us for today. Which takes us to Donna, welcome, and to the Cromwell Financial Report period ending 31st of December 2022.
So take the paper as read. For the first 6 months ending the 31st of December 2022, there was a favourable operating variance of 2.3 million against the revised budget. Revenue has a favourable variance of 300,000, with reserves contributions driving that increase of favourable variance of 309,000. User fees and other income has an unfavourable variance of 64k. There's a couple of contributing factors to this, and this includes having the pool closures while maintenance has been undertaken, and also due to staff shortages. There is also, it's been discovered this year that there's a GSP error due to the implementation of a new point of sale system over 2 years ago. The council has made a voluntary disclosure to the IRD for this GST error. It has returned for the Cromwell pool specifically an additional $26,000 revenue. Expenditure has a favourable variance of $2 million. A lot of this is due to the cost of sales of land variance due to the timing of the actual subdivisions. The income isn't recognised in the revenue budgets, but unfortunately the cost of sales is actually pulling through, and those include Cemetery Road and Urab. So rates expense continues to be higher than budget. This should still be caught up towards the end of June. Grants has a variance due to the timing of the grants being issued, with the Cromwell Bike Park grant being funded directly from the reserves contributions as per resolution 22.4.7. Staff costs are lower than budget. This is due to shutdowns and the maintenance, but not needing as many staff on board. And capital expenditure has a favourable variance of $7 million, with your main drivers for this town centre upgrade and Cromwell. Questions?
Thank you. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
You look like.
A very good report, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
We'll look away, so carry on.
Anyone else? Doesn't go forward. That takes us to the recommendation on page 75, which is that the report be received.
I'd like to move that, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And seconder, please. Thanks, Bob. All in favour? Thank you. We do not have a mayor's report today. Tim is unavailable for our meeting. And in terms of what I've been up to, so the next item after that is the chair's report. So I've attended a couple of Museum Trust meetings, one on the 13th of February and one on the 13th of March. We signed the memorandum of understanding on the 13th of March. So that was really good to get that process completed, and Rebecca has done a very good job working alongside the museum to bring us to that point. The museum, a lot of their thinking is of course around the possibility of a new build and what that's going to look like, and concerns around what's happening in the districtisation of museums space, which is something that they have in the back of their minds. And, but other than that, they seem to be business as usual, running well, volunteers on board, and their visitor numbers up quite considerably, with visitors this year being much higher than over the last couple, of course, because of the opening of borders and people moving around the country a lot more. The majority of their visitors are from the South Island. The next largest group is from the North Island, and then visitors from overseas after that, so Australia and then everywhere else. So they're keeping really good records of those things and really good records of their basically donations. On the 11th of March, I volunteered at the Cromwell Interclub swim meet, sang the anthem and officiated as an inspector of ferns.
It's very good. I just, she's very.
I'll be with that one.
What?
On
a little steppy stone.
Didn't see you there though.
Didn't get invited.
He was at the whole thing.
Wow. Gave up my day to do it. It was fun. It was nice to see Cromwell kids coming through. There were 25 Cromwell swimmers at the meet, so it's really good seeing the club starting to rebuild its numbers, and they've got a new coach on board, which is awesome, and I'm really looking forward to seeing their progress over the next year, because they've got a really good young group of swimmers coming through. On the 12th of March, I spent my day at the Goldfield School colour run. I'd like to thank the Cromwell Volunteer Fire Brigade for tuning up with a fire engine to soak us all and make lots of children squeal and laugh. It was lots of fun and a great fundraiser for our school. I did bake to contribute to the fire the volunteer fire brigades supper on Tuesday for their meeting as well.
But yeah. So missed out that photos didn't give me any.
You'd obviously gone home, didn't attend.
Awkward.
Was
There'd been a call out just before the meeting.
It was too good.
Yeah.
was there a call out to your house as well because of the baking went on?
No, it's baking. I do lots of baking. And on the 10th of March, I went to drop-in sessions at McNulty House for the Cromwell Memorial Hall / Museum drop-in sessions with a group of Year 5 and 6 students from my school. The setup was really good. The activities they had for the kids were fantastic, and I thought that the architect team and the council team did an amazing job of answering questions for the public and making them feel really welcome and explaining things for them and inviting their feedback on the project. So I'd like to thank everybody who was involved in that. That's me. That I've been working. I'd like to move my report, please. Seconder. Thank you, Bob. All in favour?
Right.
Right, and that takes us to members' reports. So Wally, it's just an update of stuff you've been up to, obviously, in the last little while. Start this direction. Cheryl.
Okay, so on the 13th of February, I attended the Cromwell Community House meeting. Their manager is still on SSC. She is making a slow recovery, but she will be there, and they are coping. She's just doing a couple of hours today. 16th went to the old Cromwell meeting, which that particular one. 8th of March was council. Ken Churchill came to speak to us in relation to the Welding Pine report that was tabled during the meeting. He was in support of a staged approach to moving the pines around the Bridge Hill area. Susan Freeman Green came from LGNZ and spoke, well, she gave a bit of an update on the council mark program. There was a report by Rebecca and Ingram with regard to the museum's draft annual plan, and he spoke about increasing costs and the funding being needed. An update on the district funding model. Well, that was, yeah, with regard to New Zealand investment. A couple of requests for easements. Then there was an offer to purchase private water infrastructure that was applied. A report on the Welding Pine policy, which came with a request from the Vincent Community Board to clarify the wording of the policy as to whether a staged approach for the removal of pines could be permitted. The vote was split, and the mayor used his casting vote, and it was agreed that, it was passed that the policy does not permit a staged approach. And we have the draft annual plan. On the 16th of March, I attended another Cromwell meeting. And 4 female members of our community took it upon themselves to remove the plants and prune a rose, so to give themselves more space at the farmers market. So, needless to say, that has really annoyed the board members, and they have been sent, each of them have been sent correspondence to say that the garden will be reinstated, and that should they decide to actually remove it again, the matter will be passed on to the police. Personally, I think they should pay for it, but anyway, our board members are nicer than me.
Removed and disposed.
Beg your pardon?
Removed and disposed of.
They stole the plants.
Oh,
they put the plants.
So that they didn't move them.
They didn't
really
move them,
put
they,
somewhere else to let them die. They took them away.
they took them away
And
they stole the plants.
do you know where they ended up?
No. I have no idea.
It's quite a different.
So
But
now
that's a-
the garden will
opposed
be
to it.
reinstated, but the women are known. And actually, when the incidents first occurred, one of the board members asked them to cease, and they did it anyway. Yeah, so the garden will be replaced, but it's a public space, and it's volunteers that plant these gardens
also
and look
theft,
after them.
As opposed to
So it's pretty poor behaviour.
that's also technically a crime,
That is, it's
as opposed to a
it's theft. They took them.
yeah.
So, but anyway, they're known to the board members and they have dealt with it, so there you go.
How we get to the old ladies still. It's not road homes anymore.
Yeah, so.
Thank you, Cheryl. On that sad note, Wally.
So soon after the election result was announced, I forwarded an email chain from a member of the public about Loburn. As the email chain was between that member of the public and Lind Colliers, that is, just about what can be done at Loburn with campus spreading everywhere there. So said I'll look into it, follow it up in due course. Since been approached by Duncan Faulkner of the Lake Dunstan Charitable Trust to see if I'd be a community board liaison to that group, to which I agreed to meet up and see if we could make that happen. And then after 2 days at the Wanaka show, I've called into the whole drop-in session on the Sunday, which was a pretty positive start to the role. It was pretty well received, as Anna said. So yeah, that was a really good session there. Aside from that, that's my community board related update.
Thank you. And I think we did say earlier that if the Lake Dunstan Charitable Trust would like to drop us a line, then maybe we can formalise that arrangement for them to have a liaison person from this board. Neil.
So Cheryl picked up what happened at the council meeting, which is good. Hearings panel has been a little bit busy. We had a hearing on 21st of February, which was we did a 3-lot subdivision down Mills Flat. We were doing a 2-lot subdivision in Earnscleugh. Travelling accommodation constructed and operated out in Bannockburn, Patterson Road. And there was an application for Worring Tree in relation to an early childhood centre in the Worring Tree, which I referred to earlier. And also a couple of residential activities that were applied for down in Springvale. The panel met again on the 1st of March, where we considered an application for Larks Bay Trust over at Northburn for residential building platform and some earthworks over there. So that's still ongoing, that consent. The 14th of March, we did one for Northern Dairies, which is out Omakau way for a 7-lot subdivision. So lots of subdivisions being proposed in the rural resource area around the district. Also, I attended the open day on the Sunday. I would say what a well put together presentation that was made available for people to drop in and talk to us about. The staff and the contractors, consultants involved did a fantastic job. Some really good positive and negative feedback. Positive and negative, obviously. And I've got to say that McNulty House, what a treasure that is. Certainly a good decision to use our endowment funds to purchase that property. Just show what it can be used for. So, but yeah, to all those involved in those drop-ins in those 3 days, it was well worth it. And I think we've got to move forward with that. That's about it, Madam Chair.
Sarah.
Much like yourself, I think I followed you around. You just copy and paste a bit of Anna's. Many small events, a couple of days down at the hall, which was awesome to see how positive that was. And again, all the interactions and people outside of that has been exceptionally well. So I think going 3 days and me sitting here, I would say well done on the selection of the people that you've put forward to. I think it's a really great fit. I've worked with lots of architects and firms like that don't ever quite get the project. I think one was quite unique, and I really think what was coming out of that was 100% where we need to be. So great work on that. That team delivered that really well as well. Really good, positive weekend. I've been to, as I hope you have all seen, I've become the face of our waste minimisation campaign. Yes, it was my wee bin that I was in. No, I didn't get a clean one. Nobody got hurt doing it. I'm working with the comms team to work on some positive messages there on how we go, the transition from 3 bins to 4 bins, what that means for people. There's lots of things coming up with people, many questions on many levels, but really trying to be a positive reinforcement and look at each issue that comes up and how we resolve that, or how that gets attacked if it's not something the team have considered as yet. So all queries on that. So Facebook's been a really great medium for that, lots of interest. But take that, anything you hear, direct that through to Abby and Maria or myself. And I think the messaging's been really good and really positive, but we're in the very early stages of that working. But so far so good, and I don't have to get in any more bins, so that's bonus. And they went through my bin, and that's something we'll be following up, working through how we reduce our waste. Apart from that, many and varied sports associations, teams, clubs, AGMs, and planning and strategic meetings. Key thing that's come out of that for me is that everyone I've been to, clubs are nearing capacity for our venues, or what we're able to offer as a community on a coaching level, but also mostly on a facility level, and which I instigated David joining me at the pool to meet up with the swim club. We had a really positive night together, that's the start of working out how the swim club can grow and how we can better use that pool, how we can get more revenue in there, whilst not still charging the same people over and over. And I think that's going to be a really positive step forward, isn't it? So yeah, they were really happy to have some involvement, and it was a really simple fix from our point of view that, while rates are going up, there's a lot of things we can do in that positive interaction and pushing those messages that really do alleviate a lot of the stress, or at least make us look a little bit more human. So I would really encourage anything along those lines of push the good stuff. And that's me.
I've got a question.
Oh, crikey.
Was it a big wheelie one or a wee wheelie one?
It was a big one. I'm not going to fit in a little one. You wouldn't give me a little one, then, yeah? Now it's getting a dirty old one. I'm going to put the kids in the little one. Got 4 kids, there's 4 bins. It's perfect.
You realise this meeting's been recorded and live streamed all around the place?
Just don't tell the kids. Just
the kids might be watching it.
The principal's listening. If you get through the run of February, it's very much of issues.
I heard the school's got an order for 300 wheelbins.
Map time changes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Right, on the 14th of February, Tuesday the 14th of February, I attended a monthly meeting of the Cromwell District's Promotions Group. Nothing really very much to report there. They were just doing a review of the previous year's activities. On the 26th, Monday the 26th, bit of a feather in the cap for Cromwell. After a gap of 3 years, the New Zealand Open Golf tournament, of course, restarted because of the non-availability because of COVID, and they held final qualifying for the Open Championship at Cromwell Golf Club, which was a pretty good event. 60 players actually competing for 4 places in the New Zealand Open. And just as an aside, on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, I was actually one of the starters at the New Zealand Open, so I spent 4 days there at Millbrook. On the 10th of March, Friday the 10th of March, I spent the afternoon at McNulty House, and I think everybody's pretty much covered that. What a great event that was. I also spent Sunday afternoon there, the 12th of March. The overall message that came across from that was just get on with it, and that was a resounding sort of message from the community. And I'd just like to reiterate that the guys from JASMAC and the council staff that were there did a fantastic job with everybody. On 14th of March, Tuesday the 14th of March, I attended a planning meeting for the Cromwell Districts Promotions Group again. And the main purpose of that event was, well, not the main purpose, but one of the reasons for that meeting was they are planning a quiz night, which is going to be held on the 27th of April at the Cromwell Golf Club, and the quizmaster is going to be Peter Williams from TVNZ, ex-TVNZ man. So that's an event. And Cromwell ratepayer now, yes, yeah. And that's my report.
Thanks, Bob. Can I have a move and a seconder for Anna's reports, please? Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Cheryl. All in favour? Anyone against? Carried. Righty ho, that takes us to our governance report on page 84. Anything from those governance reports? And I note that it has been flipped. So that
Yes.
the newest things are on the top.
My question to you is, would like me to continue that?
Yes. I
Right.
will confess to having gone to the bottom of the, what? Oh, that's right, it's changed it, so, but I'll give it Sky Heart, but yeah, keep it
You
up.
can just read across.
Yeah.
I have one question,
Simple
please,
things.
if I may. Page 87, there's something there about construction of toilets for the Cromwell Bike Park. I noticed there's quite a lot of work going on there at the moment. Is that the start of that or not? Or is it something else? It's not.
I fixed the pump track.
All right, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Else, back to page 84 then, recommend that the report be received. Mover and a seconder, please. Thanks, Wally. Thanks, Neil. All in favour? Righty ho, the date of our next meeting is to the 7th.
8th of May.
Is the 8th of May.
So that's it.
So it says.
That'll be here.
And that takes us to the resolution to exclude the public. Have a mover and a seconder to exclude the public. Read the reasons there.
Okay.
You, Cheryl, all in favour?
Aye.
All good. Thank you. Wait while the live stream. Take